Hey guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
We're two lifelong friends and musicians, and when we're not playing gigs, we like to talk games.
And today on Gaming Gig, we're going to talk about the Unreal Engine 5 demo that was, and is, the Matrix Awakens.
At the Game Awards, they announced that this Matrix, I guess you'd call it I don't even know, what would you call it?
I mean, it's like part marketing stint, part demo.
Yeah. It's
all video games.
It's a Matrix experience, right?
It's an experience.
Right, they announced this, and I immediately downloaded it, because I thought, one, I gotta see this, because this is Unreal Engine 5 running natively on PS5 and Series X. I want to start by saying, this was incredible graphics-wise. I was blown away. And this really got me thinking about the future of gaming, and specifically Unreal Engine 5, but also just the future of gaming in general in terms of where graphics are headed and what our kind of gaming experience will be like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The graphics were absolutely incredible, and I actually put in my notes that it was difficult to tell when they transitioned from like a real Keanu Reeves to a game Keanu Reeves. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure that it was ever real. I honestly don't know. That's how good the graphics were.
It was definitely confusing to tell. I think there was real video, and I think there was game graphics. I do think at some point they swapped.
I think you're right.
But this is what's crazy, is how good these graphics are that we're even having to discuss what was real and what wasn't.
You can't tell.
The line is being blurred here.
It is. I mean, it was super uncanny valley, like the whole time.
Right. It's crazy. It looked amazing, and the lighting and the textures are so real to life that it's just crazy.
Oh, it was insane. I mean, yesterday, I think I just kind of sat my Xbox controller down and I was like typing on my computer, and I ended up zooming in the camera really close to the pavement. And the texture of the pavement, like, I don't know if I could have been able to tell if that was a close-up picture of a concrete street or if that was the game. And, you know, as people were walking by or cars were driving by, you'd see the shadows come in and out. I mean, it was all just so realistic.
Speaking of shadows, this kind of brings me to the lighting. The lighting was super, super realistic. Maybe too realistic, in that at the end of the game, it kind of lets you just loose. And you can go through the city, you can drive around, you can walk around, you can kind of go into the camera and fly around. And when I was driving into the sun, I was getting such extreme glare. It was just like being in real life where you can't really see it because the sun is so in your eyes. I thought, this is so realistic, but I don't know if this is enjoyable because the sun is really blinding me right now. It felt super real, which made me think, you know, are games going to continue to move towards this uber realistic style, and will it be a good thing? Is the realism going to be something that we're amazed by and enjoy, or is it going to be something that is cool as a novelty, but maybe a more stylized, maybe more gamey style of graphics is more fun? You know, I don't know. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about how Nintendo can turn out some really, really good looking games.
Right.
And they're, you know, not in 4K or any of that stuff. And
they're certainly not realistic looking.
No, and I think it's because they don't go for that, that they're able to get those really smooth looking stylized graphics that we love.
Right.
And this Matrix Awakens was clearly on the other end of the spectrum. Absolutely. I mean, it was just flexing its realism muscles, you know, the whole time. And the muscles were huge.
You talked, before we started recording this episode, you were mentioning the water, because, well, just tell me what you think about the water.
Yeah, so I've kind of gotten a little sensitive to how water looks in games because of playing Sea of Thieves.
Right.
And we've talked about how Sea of Thieves doesn't get everything right, but man, they get that water right.
Oh, they get it a lot right, yeah.
That water looks good. Now, you jump in it and try to swim around, it may not be any fun anymore, but the water looks good. And so I jumped in the God camera on Matrix Awakens, and I flew to the other side of the city to the water. And I was like, I'm about to see the sickest video game water I've ever seen in all my days.
Right.
And I was wrong. It didn't really look that great.
I didn't really have a second thought about the water, so I don't know if it was just acceptable to me and I just didn't really think about it again. What did it look realistic? I don't even remember.
I think it looked realistic from far away. I don't think they really wanted me to zoom in really close to the water, but I had just had my moment where I was zoomed in on the pavement and so floored. So I was like, I'm gonna zoom in on everything.
Right.
And the water just, it didn't look that great close up. It was all just very, very uniform, and it just looked like they phoned in the water.
And then maybe they were okay doing that because you really weren't supposed to get that close to the water. And the city kind of just had one big loop around it. Mm-hmm. And I think there was water all the way around it. It was kind of like an island, right?
Yeah.
So as you got as far as you couldn't go into the water.
No, you couldn't walk to the water. You had to fly there.
Yeah, exactly. So they knew you probably weren't going to get there that close playing the game traditionally without getting in the camera and zooming in.
Mm-hmm. But I went around and zoomed in on everything. I mean, I zoomed in on pavement, water, the sides of buildings. I tried to find like as many different materials as I could. I zoomed in on like some metal steps at one point. They had like the yellow paint on them, like, you know, caution going up the steps and all that. Looked great. It had that like diamond cross-stitched pattern that you see on those steps, trying to be anti-slip or whatever. It all looked great that I found, except the water.
If people have not played this, if they have not tried this and they're interested in trying it, I think they absolutely should, just to see what graphics can look like in this Unreal Engine 5. But that being said, the gameplay is short. This is only, maybe like 10, 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
For everything that you can do. I mean, you can spend as much time as you want, like, looking around the city at the end. But that's really not the reason for this. It's really just a tech demo. Mm-hmm. It's showing what the state of the art is for graphics. Now, as I was driving around, especially when I got to really high speeds and I crash, there was a lot of frame rate dips because this game runs at tops 30 frames per second. And it was a pretty solid 30 for the most part, which I don't think I'm especially sensitive to frame rate. Mm-hmm. I play a lot of games in graphics mode where it'll be 4K 30, but I could tell that this game had a lot of dips in frame rate, and that's not really a problem for this in particular because it's just a Matrix experience. It's not like this is some game I'm going to spend 100 hours playing. It was a 10-minute, 15-minute demo. But it kind of made me think about, is this the way games are going to be in the future? Is it going to be all about the graphics and, frame rate they're just not going to worry about, and they're going to be okay with the frame rate dipping down into the teens?
I don't want us to seem like we are just extrapolating, all the games that come out in the future, if they use this Unreal Engine 5, they're going to have crappy frame rate, they're going to look great. Because I don't think that's the case. I think that just wasn't their focus for this demo. But to answer your question about, is that going to be the future of games? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I hope not. And honestly, I don't think so. I think as technology progresses, the TVs are coming out with 120 hertz refresh rate. I think people are going to support that.
Yeah, and I hope so. We're starting to hear it hit a point of diminishing returns in terms of graphics, because all of these graphics were amazing. And these were like next level graphics. And I've never played a game that had graphics that were quite on this level. I have played games that I thought looked better than this. Maybe not more realistic, but I've played games that I enjoyed the graphics more than this.
Yeah, me too. I think we would both say that a lot of times that's due to maybe the art style. And
it absolutely is. And I hope that in the future we don't start seeing games only going for super realistic graphics, because that's like the trend, Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily think it will be, but I could see a future in which that happens.
Well, I really hope you're not prophesizing doom and gloom here. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine a future where they try to make Mario look hyper realistic. But I know we always jump back to Nintendo. Mm-hmm. But, it's hard for me to imagine a future where they make Ratchet and Clank look hyper realistic. So I don't think the stylized look is going anywhere. I certainly hope not.
Yeah, and you're definitely onto something there. I think there are certainly franchises and certain types of games that are going to lean into that more heavily stylized and not so realistic graphics. But what I don't want to see is I don't want to live in a world where 30 frames per second being the top is okay.
Oh, no, I don't want to do that, not one bit.
Yeah.
I love my 120.
Really, I think this is the first time I've played a game that was using Unreal Engine 5, because I don't really think there's been any other games that have come out that have used it yet. Or maybe I'm wrong about this, but I can't think of any. I
did a little bit of research yesterday, and I don't think there is. There's some franchises who are committed to using it in the future.
Right.
One that jumped out to me was Gears of War. Mm-hmm. But I don't think any of that stuff is out yet.
Right. So we'll really not know until we get our first big proper game that's in Unreal Engine 5. Mm-hmm. And then we'll know a little bit more about what these new fancy graphics, how it's going to work frame rate wise, and what we're going to actually get out of it.
You know, Fortnite is moving over to Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah,
I mean, but then again, Fortnite is, I think, going to stay very stylized.
definitely.
So, you know, it just got me thinking about the direction of games in the future. Is the industry going to shift towards prioritizing really realistic graphics and not prioritizing frame rate?
Right. As I think about this, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about graphics. Anybody who talks video games does.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think there are a lot more important parts of a game than the graphics.
Oh, yeah.
And I really hope that people, you know, game developers don't overlook that.
There are more important things than graphics to gamers, but I think to the general audience, I think what's the thing that hooks them? If they see this game, like a commercial on TV, and they see this like crazy graphics, they say, oh man, that's a great game. Just look at the graphics. You can tell by looking at it.
Yeah.
Although we know that's not true. We know that you can't correlate really good graphics with a really great game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the general public maybe does.
It's like when you make a wedding cake and you cover it in this like beautiful fondant that is themed perfectly for the bride and groom, and then you bite into it and it tastes like coal.
I don't know where you're getting these wedding cakes that taste like coal.
It was a metaphor. Or was it a simile? I don't know if I used like or as.
It tastes like coal. So
yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it was a simile. And I probably said that it was like a wedding cake. So, yep, that's a simile, folks.
Speaking of graphics, this game immediately reminded me of another game I've played that was set in a city, which is the Spider-Man series.
Mm-hmm.
Both the Spider-Man 2016, was it 2016 when Spider-Man came out?
Your guess is as good as mine, man.
That seems right, but I could be wrong. The Spider-Man game and Miles Morales, both of those games use New York City, and to me, both of those games graphically, although not as realistic, you know, they had a really nice city setting, and I think I enjoy those art styles more. Especially Miles Morales looked really good.
Yeah. And that first Spider-Man game, by the way, came out in 2018.
2018. Gosh, the years are going by.
Well, we're getting older.
I know.
You know? But I agree. I actually had the same impression as you when I dropped into that city. And I was like, oh, yeah. I wish I could web sling right now.
Yeah, right? It definitely brought back vibes of that game. And I guess any game that's set in like a big city like New York City or something like that is going to, you know, evoke similar sort of feelings. But I couldn't help but compare my thoughts on what the game should look like based on those two games.
Imagine like a GTA, you know, that looked like that. Like, oh, I don't know, like a GTA 6.
I wonder if GTA is going to move towards that, you know, heavily realistic graphic style.
I don't know. I mean, I've only seen screenshots from that trilogy they released, but it didn't look like it.
Oh, gosh. The GTA trilogy. The definitive edition, Daniel. Those are the definitive versions of those games.
Yeah, GTA, the trilogy, the definitive collection.
It does have a lot of these.
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto. That sounds like you're cussing at me.
So this Matrix thing was really impressive. It was one of those moments where I felt like, okay, this is next gen. I've had a couple of those moments as we've moved into this, you know, new generation of gaming, and this is certainly one of those moments that made me say, hey, this is new. And I think we're kind of in a generation of gaming where those moments are fewer and further in between than any generation in the past. But it's cool to have those moments and experience that because we don't get that a whole lot. If you're a listener and you haven't tried the Matrix experience, this Matrix Awakens thing, I would try it. It's free. Once you're finished with it, you can delete it. But if you have the room for it and you're interested in it, check it out because this is really cool. It's going to kind of give you a glimpse of what graphics could be like in future games. I hope that we have these graphics with good frame rate. That's the only thing I ask.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Maybe cut them some slack on the frame rate because I really hope that's not the future.
Well, guys, tell us what you think. Have you tried this Matrix thing? What did you think about it? Did you have frame rate issues like we did? Or did you not notice it at all? Just let us know what you think. And until next time, guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
And this has been Gaming Gig.
Peace out.